Good morning, everybody. This is Nick Augustine with attorney Cherika Edwards in Houston. This is Texas Law Talk Radio Network. Cherika, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am well and happy to talk to you. I want to tell the folks at home, as I first saw, if you think on TikTok, she was doing a TikTok live and she was cooking supper and so was I. And she was answering questions from people with family law questions. And I've worked in family law so much and seen it with so many people, and they just need a little bit of help. So you're an awesome person for doing that, Cherika.
Thank you. It's something that has grown as like a passion and honestly a part of my life now, being on TikTok and just answering questions and talking to my followers. So I actually really love doing that. It's one of my favorite parts of being an attorney.
That's so good. And there's people right now who are losing their minds. Like, how are we going to find each other? When if TikTok goes away, I'm going to say it's not going away, but like you could tell that the people are feeling the impact and just authenticity and people letting down the gates and just connecting. I mean, how many lawyers are answering questions about enforcements and modifications while they're cooking supper and their kids are upstairs and it's what do you want I'm glad we have that in the world. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your law practice, why you chose family law, what's your brand, what makes you different, like what people remember about you that makes you shine.
Absolutely. So I have been practicing family law since 2018. Honestly, I found my passion for family law when I was working at Houston Volunteer Lawyers. And what I realized is that a lot of the people who came down to seek free legal advice were a lot of people who looked like me and a lot of people who were minorities and just kind of needed that direction. So that's what kind of founded my passion for doing family law. And I just kind of got on TikTok, got on Instagram, and became really known. And currently, I feel like my platform is built on fathers' rights, representing dads, and letting dads know that they have the same rights as a mom. But most importantly, um, I'm really I don't mind litigating a family law case, but I'm really big on encouraging families to reach an agreement, figure out how you guys can work these things out without going to court and talking to a judge who has absolutely no idea who you are other than the mud that you guys are slinging against each other. So I like to found myself as an attorney who's putting our clients first, but most importantly, encouraging my clients to put their children first, because that's what really matters a lot in these family law cases.
Absolutely. Tell us about the DIY stuff you put together and how that's helping people.
Yes. So, as I said, I started with Houston Volunteer Lawyers. So I had a shoe in of these packages that are offered for free online and through the law library in a lot of different states here in Texas. But what I noticed is that they were packages where you have to read and literally do exactly what the packet tells you to do in order to be successful in whatever lawsuit you're trying to file. And I noticed that there was a lot of disconnect and people not really being able to utilize those packages. So I created these DIY packages where I call it do it your damn self, because in Texas, we have a right to represent ourselves. And in those packages, I walk each person through everything that they need to do, and it's a video of me telling you exactly where to put your name, where to put the dates, where to put the last digits of your social, and I'm walking you through this process. So what I like to say is like having me on demand, because you can pause and play whenever you're ready. So right now we currently have a couple of packages. One of our biggest packages is that custody order package, as well as getting a name change. There are a lot of people who need name changes, so those are the packages that are our top sellers. I've gotten a lot of people who have reached out and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a dad who was able to get sole custody of his child doing it by himself using one of my do it your damn self packages. So I'm very, very excited that those packages are working for people.
I'll tell you, there is going to be more and more of a need for attorneys on demand, especially as more people are turning to ChatGPT and other AI resources. In fact, ChatGPT scored a 90% on some bar exam, but what not ChatGPT doesn't know is the tone and the attitude of different judges in different district courts, different opposing counsels, and the fun that they bring to the mix, and everything that can happen along the way. So Is lawyers used to be more gatekeepers. And I remember being the law clerk with the LexisNexis CD-ROM update, and I was like, I have the key to all the information. But really, like, gatekeeping information is not what lawyers are here for. Lawyers are here to tell you what your situation is gonna, how it's gonna be, received by others, and what your best strategy is. So, and it's, people are going to continue trying to figure this out on their own. They're going to turn on people like you for help in, like, okay, I understand the gist of it. Now, what do I do in this situation?
Yeah, yeah. And I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly that, I felt like even when I became a lawyer, that I felt like we were kind of taking on this hat of like gatekeeping. And so I feel like I was one of the first attorneys to get on TikTok and get on Instagram and start just telling people like in lamest terms what you can and can't do. And now we have so many different attorneys that are on the platform using that platform to say, everyday information and inform people on TikTok what the real deal is as it relates to different areas of law.
Right. And there was a lot of people who jumped on and were early adopters, but you stayed there. It's not just testing the water, like, you're all in. And, like, it shows your commitment to trying to actually reach people, because at the end of the day, like, that's why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
let's jump into enforcement issues, and I saw a TikTok you did on enforcement questions and answers. So we're going to run through a couple things. Um, uh, about enforcement actions, misconceptions, who needs enforcement, what they should expect, different alternative dispute resolutions like mediation, how that happens, advice for families, and things like that. So, but my first question here on my list, what is one? This is another, like, fun icebreaker one. What is one thing that your colleagues, in court and everything else? What's one thing that they would be surprised to learn about you?
One thing that I think my colleagues would be surprised to know about me is that I am very, very shy. Um, when I tell people that I'm shy, they like bust out laughing and they're always like, "Yeah, right, you're not shy." And it's honestly something that's very weird for me because I feel like I became shy when I started law school and I started pursuing my legal degree or my legal career. I feel like that's when I became shy. I just had like an engagement party, and during the engagement party, like I needed to stand up and talk in front of my family and friends, but I was so freaking shy. And my family was like, "You're not shy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, y'all are looking at me. I am shy." I think that's one fun fact that people don't know about me.
Right. Well, maybe we don't realize we're shy until, like, everyone's watching us. And I have had that too, where it's like, you step up in front of the bench and you got that judge looking down at you, and, like, I don't care who you are, it is easy to be like frozen in yeah, right. It's
Yes,
like,
yes. And then your words, I know for me, it's like my words start fumbling. It's like I suddenly can't talk anymore. I don't know how to properly pronounce things, and it's like, I swear I know what I'm talking about. I swear I'm saying the right thing, but it's just because I'm shy.
all right. Well, we're gonna have to take your word for it, because we've seen your videos, and you're pretty out there. So that's good that you're overcoming, or at least able to function. I claim that I'm a shy introvert. No one believes me. I'm just like, I'm a Sagittarius. How about that? Does that work? And
Me
they're like,
too.
yeah, okay. All right, enforcement. So we go through, our hypothetical people here have gone through all sorts of things with custody, and they finally got something in place, and all of a sudden things aren't working. And it may not be the fault of either the parents, and maybe it's, maybe the primary parent has a new love interest and they've got some kids, and maybe everything's been going right for like 3 or 4 years since we got done with court, but now we got problems, and we thought we were going to be able to talk through it. But guess what? This new paramour in the mix of one of the parents is saying and influencing, and we've got all sorts of things. And it's like, ooh, we're not trying to go back to court. And then we find out, what do you mean we have to start a whole new court case?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
What is it?
Yep. So it's the enforcement. And that is a big confusion that a lot of clients have. It's like the judge doesn't know that the other party is violating the court order until you tell them, right? Like the judge is not tracking what's going on outside in the real world. The only way that you can tell the court that the other party is violating the order is to file a motion for enforcement, right? And then in addition to that, just because you file a motion for enforcement doesn't mean that the court is going to put the other person in jail. It doesn't mean that the court is going to hold that person in contempt, which is why it's so important for you to hire an attorney who is very familiar and knows how to properly file a motion for enforcement. And then on top of that, sometimes the court is going to give that other parent some type of grace, right? So I just tell people it's always best for you to consult with an attorney before you do a motion for enforcement. Check that attorney's stats as it relates to a motion for enforcement because they are quasi criminal. And because they're quasi criminal, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person violated that order. And that is where it's very, very hard for a lot of attorneys and pro se litigants to overcome that presumption. And then you start feeling like the judge just allowed her to violate the order or allowed him to violate the order. And now you feel as if you have no relief or you have no remedy whatsoever. So yeah, they're very, very hard.
Can you talk more about it being quasi-criminal and what that means?
Yeah. So in an enforcement case, we call them quasi criminal because there's a civil component of an enforcement, but then there's a criminal portion of an enforcement, meaning that the court can order the person who violated the order, they can order them to go to jail or they can order them to be placed on probation. And so that's where that criminal component comes in. Anytime you're getting ready to place someone in jail, you have to make sure that you cross out each and every element of an enforcement in order to even have the judge consider placing that other person in jail. And I always tell people all the time, the first time you file an enforcement, it's very rare that the judge is going to place that person in jail. It's very rare, especially in the counties that I practice in here in Harris County. It has happened, but it has to be quite severe in order for the courts to do that. And so I like to always just give my clients the real world, like this is what can happen, and these are your remedies before you decide to move forward.
How many enforcements? Well, for penalties, as you're talking about, what about for money?
Yeah, so there are fees associated with, you can ask the court to fine the individual for violating your order. But one of the things I like about an enforcement is that that is actually the only place in the Texas Family Code that you can find that the courts can actually grant, your attorney fees back for having to file an enforcement. A lot of other times it's just like if you file a divorce, you file a modification, like you can ask the court to order your attorney fees, but it's not going to be guaranteed. But in the Texas Family Code and the Enforcement Code, it's actually a portion in there that says the courts will order you back your attorney fees if you're successful.
Oh, and a lot of people are absolutely willful and wanton about their, snubbing the court's order and getting at the other person. And they may figure that, well, what are they going to do about it because it's going to cost them money? And they may not understand that. So they're going to drive their little car over to the law office of Cherika Edwards and they are going to go in. They've got the receipts, the this, the that. They got all of it. They got
Yeah,
a box of documents and they're like, here you go, boom. And then they're
right.
going to find because they're thinking that you're going to call the other lawyer and be like, this isn't working. Like, what's your guy doing? Like, why aren't, and then they're finding out that, they might have to go to court and do this whole thing and they have to get served. And so, how do you help people determine whether their situation really makes sense to go back and file an enforcement?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. A lot of times, I like to look at the facts and look at the evidence that they have. And I tell my clients like if your order tells you that you need to be there at 6 p.m. and you're there at 6:01, we're not filing an enforcement because it's going to be a waste of your time and the court's time because you were not there at exactly 6 p.m. And so if the real issue is that this other parent is violating the court order by not allowing me to have possession or access, or this other parent is not paying their child support as ordered, I not only like guide them, but structure them in a way to where they can be successful on an enforcement. Because a lot of times people just don't know, right? So I try to provide them not just like solutions all the time, but more so guidance on how to navigate these issues and how to get through these issues, because if their ultimate goal is to file a lawsuit, I have to get you in a position to file a lawsuit. But then I will say on the flip side is if you come in my office and you're telling me all this stuff and I see that you're really just trying to get back at the other parent and you're not really having a solution that puts the child in the front, I'm going to decline to take your case altogether. And I don't mind telling you, like, hey, this isn't the office for you. It doesn't sound like you're really in this because of the child. You're really in this to make the other parent suffer. And that's just types of cases that I don't take, and I don't mind telling parents that at all.
Right. When you have these discussions about their different options, does it come up that maybe things need to be modified and that maybe the route to go?
Absolutely. And I will tell you a lot of times that I do suggest a modification is if I've had a parent who comes in, they haven't seen the kid in 2 to 3 years or 5 years, and now they've just popped back on the scene and they expect the other parent to just turn over the child. I'm like, wait, 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 wait. Yes, you do have an order that says that you're supposed to visit this child, but you haven't visited this child in 5 years. And so maybe you need a modification to start talking about some rehabilitation and therapy and things like that because you haven't seen this child, right? And this child doesn't know you. And so maybe a modification may be your best avenue. There are times when I come in and I look at a person's order and I realize their order is not tight. It's not clear. Are they supposed to pick up at 6 p.m. or are they supposed to pick up at 5 p.m.? It's not clear if the visitation is at mom's house or is it at dad's house. Like there's a lot of ambiguity in their order. And in those situations, I do suggest a modification to get it clear and tight on what it is for them to follow. Because, like I said, those enforcements are very, very strict. And you have to have a clean order in order to be successful in filing an enforcement.
Right, right. You know, and a lot of people also don't understand that modification is a whole separate new thing too, because you're asking the court for new relief. Once
Correct.
the order is done, the order is done. And I think that that's where people get kind of confused about things going with temporary orders along during the case, but it's like when it's final and you're done, you have no more court, you are done. That's not
Right.
just open the file back up and pick up where we left off, because could you imagine if everyone did that every
Yep.
time something went wrong, we would all grind to a halt. So,
Yeah.
and now, so with modifications too, let's talk about ways that we can keep our expenses in line and maybe keep the collateral damage to our mind, body, and spirit, in check as well, with some mediation and alternative dispute resolution, or how much can we, if we need to, go bare full teeth at trial.
Yeah. That's always a question, good thing to like dissect. And I quite frankly dissect those things many times from consultation to end if we do end up with trial. And I'm always, always, always going to encourage my families to reach an agreement in mediation. Not simply because of the cost, but more specifically because I believe that you and that other party who laid down together should be able to have a say so on how you guys are going to operate. And I tell them when you go to court, it's black and white, there's no in between. But in mediation, we can find an in between. If we want to say that my blazer is yellow, I know it's pink, but if we want to say in mediation that my blazer is yellow, we can say that, and that's the law. And I try to tell families that that is the place that I think that you should hang out in. I also tell families too at the beginning, a modification may not be, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars for such a small, like if something is just so small that I don't think it would make a big difference in their case. I also encourage them that, do you want to spend $1,000 for a chance, or do you want to spend thousands of dollars of something that you and her or you and him can just have a conversation about and change amongst yourselves rather than going through a long drawn out court case, because these cases can take anywhere between 3 months to a year, but I've seen them take years. I mean, when I started practicing a while back, I took on a young lady's case. She had been through 6 attorneys. Her divorce had been going on for 7 years. And it took for me to come in and finalize the divorce, right? So typically cases take 3 to 12 months to settle. And that's thousands of dollars that you're spending on an issue. So I certainly do a cost benefit analysis with any client that comes in so that they understand, what their options are.
Yeah, and Another thing that's really important is how our kids are going to respond to everything. And we know that as parents, we do everything we can to shelter them from things. And it's really an art sometimes. A lot of people are talking about the LA fires and what's going on, what they're seeing on TikTok with Heidi and Spencer. And a lot of people talking about how Heidi Montag is there with her kid at the beach and the kids are happy and they're in a good mood. And it's like, how did you do that with all of this stuff going on around you and literally your life burning up and you're in a good mood at the beach? And there's a way that parents can talk to kids
Yeah.
and like let them know, like, don't worry about the thing,
Yep.
your world burning up. So, and it's on every different level, it affects people. And in family law, the stuff affects kids. So what are some of the new things that you've learned since COVID with people, operating a little differently? And we're all evolving all the time. What are ways that we can prevent kids from getting messed up when, we think everything's over with the divorce and then mom or dad has to go back with an enforcement or a modification? And it's like, oh, we thought this was all done. And the kids are like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what does this mean? Because they might ask their friends at school and they're like, oh, I think that means you're going to go live over here. That's going to hear. Guess what happened to this kid when their parents did, they don't know. And they might not want to ask because they don't want to find out that like their worst fears are going to come true. And you don't even realize until they're not doing well at school and they're picking on some other kid and they're like, is everything fine at home? And they're like, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a common problem that we experience every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Family law cases, which is also why all of my family law cases I always file for injunctions, temporary injunctions. And basically, I tell my clients, for lack of better terms, temporary injunctions are good behavior orders. And basically, one of the biggest things is keep the kids out of the litigation. The kids should not hear you disparaging their mother or their father. The kids should not be a part of this litigation. And I encourage my families to do the same. Another something else that I do encourage my families to do is to talk to a counselor, talk to a therapist, not just for you, but get the kids involved in therapy and get the kids involved in counseling because they are going through major changes. And a lot of times they don't have the avenues to figure out how to speak out or to share with you as a mom or a dad that these are the things that they're going through. I've seen cases where children don't know how to have an outlet and now they're trying to commit suicide. They're turning to drugs and things of that nature. And that's the last thing that you want to see happen because the family is falling apart. So I do encourage my families to enroll in counseling, enroll in therapy. And if I see situations where parents are not being able to exchange the child and it's creating a horrible situation for a kid because they know dad's coming to pick me up today or mom's coming to pick me up today and they're going to fight, if I understand that that's a problem, then mom and dad don't need to exchange. Maybe we need to exchange at the school, or maybe I recently suggested, what is a happy place for the kid? What do they find to be a happy place? Okay, the kid likes McDonald's. Let's exchange the kid at McDonald's. Let's let the kid meet dad with a happy meal in his hand. Let's let the kid meet mom with a happy meal in their hand so that they can associate these exchange times to be a happy time, right? So I think that there's so many different things that I like to be able to suggest and encourage for my families, but it's all about me learning my clients, learning the children, and being really involved in the litigation outside of me just receiving a paycheck.
Right. Amen to that. All right. So, what are some fine? My last question is: what are some thoughts you have on or tips for families going into 2025 who are facing some of these issues and don't really know what they should be doing? They're trying to work on things again, and sometimes it works, sometimes it's you think like to stay together for the kids, and it's how much are you really fighting? Like what we're you know trying to figure out what to do. And parents, it's tough to make the right decision, especially as we grow older. We look back at ourselves 5 years later, 10 years later, you're like, I don't know if I knew what I was talking about 10 years ago. So I hope that in 10 years from now, I'm not going to look back and think I'm making foolish choices. So, how do you help people who are trying to not make the wrong decisions?
Yes, so a lot of my all of my clients who are experiencing things like that, we do hold their hand and guide them, but most importantly, we pair them with counselors and therapists who are here to be able to help them navigate that. A lot of the courts here in Texas or Harris County specifically there's a requirement that you take a parenting course. We have went through some of those, looked at some of those parenting courses, and we make sure that our clients take those parenting courses because it helps you navigate these types of issues. And that is exactly why the courts here in Harris County recommend that you take those classes, right? So we stay on our clients to make sure that they are taking the classes, they are reflecting, and also asking them to remove their feelings and their thoughts from dealing with the kid, right? And one thing I do tell parents, give the other parent grace. Give the other parent grace. Just like you're experiencing all these emotions and all these things that are going on, so is that other parent. And they may not deal with these issues the same way you deal with the issues. So give them grace because the court is most certainly going to give them grace. What you think is such a bad situation, it may have been a bad situation to you, but when they get to court, the court may understand why they acted out that way or understand why they lashed out that way. Not saying that it's right and not saying that they should do, but I just ask a lot of my parents, give them grace, give grace, because you would want somebody to give grace to you if you were in those shoes.
Such great advice. All right, Cherika Edwards, thank you so much for being on the program today here on Texas Law Talk Radio. For people who want to follow you and get more information or have a need themselves to get some legal advice, how should people best follow up with you and stay in touch?
Yes, so they can always visit my website at yourfavoriteattorney.com. I'm on Instagram at your favorite underscore Instagram. I mean, your favorite underscore attorney on Instagram. And then I'm also on TikTok at attorney Cherika Nicole.
All right, I love that. Our favorite attorney. I love that. Why didn't I think of that? You know, I love it. It's so
Thank
smart. All right, cool. All right, well, you enjoy the rest of your January, and let's hope that everyone can. January is a really busy month right now.
you.
People who are looking to file things, how soon can they get temporary orders, and where you are?
In Harris County, it takes a while, honestly. It takes a long time. I tell people give me about 3 months, but if there is an immediate danger, you can get something a lot sooner. I say that because Harris County has a requirement that you go to mediation before you have temporary orders, and sometimes that takes quite some time. So realistically, you're looking at about 3 months to get some temporary orders in place. However, if there's a parent that's withholding a child or there's an immediate issue, you can always file an affidavit and ask for immediate relief from the court, and the courts will certainly consider it.
All right, great. So that information and other stuff in the books, they can find that on the website.
Correct. Yes.
All right, website again was.
Yourfavoriteattorney.com.
Love that. All right, cool. Thanks for your time today, Cherika Edwards. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Nick. Bye.
All right, bye. And thank you to all of you who find our recordings on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, and share this with others because you just never know who needs exactly this kind of stuff. This has been Nick Augustine with attorney Cherika Edwards on the Texas Law Talk Radio Network. Everyone have a great day. We'll be back soon next time. See you later.